FIFA once selected a referee it could not protect. That sentence contains the entire story of what happened between the 6th of June and the June 12, 2026. One man, 11 hours in a corridor, a flight he did not choose, a stadium full of people who came not for a match, but for a return, and two governing bodies of world football whose responses to the same situation could not have been more different. The paradox is almost unbearably clear. The organization that runs the World Cup, that selects officials, prints accreditations, promotes its tournament as the most inclusive in history, selected Omar Arton. It put his name on a list, and when the host country's border agents spent 11 hours questioning him before sending him home, the organization told the people who noticed to chill and relax. The organization that stepped in was not the one that runs the World Cup. That is the paradox. And it is the story of where football's institutional authority actually sits when the values the game claims to hold are tested by a real situation involving a real person. Omar Arton was born in Somalia. He was 34 years old when this story began. He had been on the FIFA international refereeing list since 2018, 8 years of work, assessments, matches, and progressions through a system not designed for quick paths. The Confederation of African Football had named him its Referee of the Year for 2025. He had officiated the CAF Champions League final second leg in the 2025-26 season. He had been selected from the entire global pool of international officials as one of 52 referees trusted with World Cup matches. He traveled to Miami on the 6th of June. His documentation was complete. He carried a diplomatic passport. He carried his FIFA accreditation. He had a valid visa. He had, in every formal, undocumented sense, the right to be where he was going and to do what he had been selected to do. The border agents pulled him aside. FIFA's initial response was measured and institutional. The governing body confirmed Arton would not officiate at the tournament. It confirmed it was not involved in host country immigration decisions. It confirmed the decision would not be reversed. These were careful words from people navigating a relationship with a host country on whose territory they were running the largest tournament in the game's history. Not involved in host country immigration processes. That phrase is technically accurate. FIFA does not set United States immigration policy. FIFA does not control what happens at Miami International Airport. And yet, the choice led with that phrase to position it as the primary public statement about what had happened to one of its own selected officials was itself a choice. A different organization might have led with outrage. A different president might have used the economic weight available to him to make clear that the treatment of FIFA's officials was unacceptable. FIFA led with not involved. And then, when journalists asked the president of FIFA directly about what had happened and what the governing body had done, he told them to chill and relax. Those 4 words spoken by the president of the organization that runs the World Cup, in response to questions about a man who had spent 11 hours being questioned about it before being sent home, became the most quoted words spoken by any football official during the first week of the 2026 World Cup. Quoted in newspapers on 6 continents, analyzed on broadcast channels across dozens of countries, placed article after article, in direct contrast to what was happening simultaneously in Salzburg, in Africa, and in the streets of Mogadishu, because what FIFA's president said chill and relax. Other things were happening. In Mogadishu, thousands of people gathered at a stadium not for a match, not for a competition, but simply for a man coming home. And they came to tell him something, that what had happened to him mattered, that the thing taken from him had value, that the people who understood its value were there, without tickets to any match, without any governing body telling them to be there because they chose to be. And in Salzburg, Austria, the president of UEFA released a statement. The statement was precise. Every sentence had been chosen carefully, and the choices were visible to anyone who read it with attention to what was not being said as much as what was. UEFA's president said that Arton was an excellent, young but already experienced referee who had proven himself at the highest competition level of the Confederation of African Football, a formal institutional affirmation, a governing body saying, in public, that the judgment of those who selected this man for the World Cup was correct. He said football is made to connect people. In the context of what had happened at Miami Airport, that sentence was not abstract. It was a direct address to the events of the 10th of June and to the gap between what the World Cup had claimed to be and what it had actually done to one of the people selected to be part of it, and then he said UEFA wanted to show its respect to Omar and his outstanding officiating skills which had earned him such a prestigious nomination. That last phrase, which had earned him such a prestigious nomination, is a reference to the FIFA World Cup appointment. It was UEFA saying, in the most public institutional language available to it, that the World Cup appointment had been earned, that the vetting concerns cited at Miami Airport were not football concerns, and that European football was prepared to say so by giving him the biggest stage it had available. The appointment was the UEFA Super Cup between Paris Saint-Germain and Aston Villa in Salzburg, Austria, on the 12th of August. The Champions League winners against the Europa League winners. The opening fixture of the European season, broadcast across the world, and Omar Arton would become, on that night in Salzburg, the first referee from the African continent ever to lead a major UEFA final. The president of CAF responded in kind. He said Arton had made Somalia and the entire people of the African continent extremely proud. He personally thanked UEFA's president by name directly, warmly, publicly for enabling Arton to officiate the Super Cup. A personal acknowledgement from the president of African football to the president of European football in public. A handshake across institutions, across continents, across the gap that FIFA had left. Step back from the details for a moment and look at the structure of what happened. FIFA is the governing body of world football. It runs the World Cup. It has the commercial scale broadcast rights, sponsorship revenues, prize money, global platform to make its tournament the most watched sporting event in human history. It selected Omar Arton. It could not protect his ability to be there. And when he was sent home, its president told people to chill and relax. UEFA runs European football. It does not run the World Cup. It has no jurisdiction over Miami International Airport. It has no formal role in deciding who can attend a tournament it is not running. And within hours of Arton landing in Mogadishu, UEFA had confirmed his appointment to the Super Cup final, worked with CAF to make it happen, released a statement, and made him the first African referee ever to lead a major UEFA final. One organization said it was not involved. The other organization got involved. The contrast between those two responses is not subtle. It is direct and deliberate and visible to everyone in world football. And it is the clearest expression of a pattern that has been building around this tournament for months, the growing gap between what FIFA's president says about inclusivity and global football, and what the governing body actually does when those values are tested by a real situation involving a real person. The Arton episode did not arrive in isolation. It arrived alongside Iran's accusation that FIFA had revoked its entire supporter ticket allocation, alongside 14 Iranian officials denied visas, alongside formal legal complaints from European supporter organizations, alongside 8 UEFA delegates who walked out of a FIFA Council meeting earlier in the year. The pattern across all of these episodes is the same. An organization that promoted this tournament as the most inclusive in history, confronted by documented situations in which the gap between those words and the operational reality was impossible to bridge. When journalists reached Arton after his return to Mogadishu, after the stadium, after the thousands who had come to welcome him home, after the phone calls and the statements and the appointment from Salzburg, he said something that deserves to sit at the center of this story. He said it was fate. He said he would attend the next World Cup. 2 sentences from a man who had worked 8 years toward a moment taken from him in 11 hours, while carrying a diplomatic passport and FIFA accreditation, who had been placed in a holding cell and flown home, and who looked forward rather than back. In Salzburg on the 12th of August. He will walk onto that pitch as the first referee from the African continent ever to lead a major UEFA final. The historic moment that was supposed to happen at the World Cup will happen instead in Austria, under a different banner, given by a different institution, the institution that put him there quickly, publicly, historically, is not the one whose tournament he was originally supposed to officiate. That fact is the story. That fact, and what it says about where moral authority in world football actually sits. FIFA's president said chill and relax. UEFA's president said football is made to connect people. Those 2 statements, issued within hours of each other on the same day, are the summary of where this tournament's institutional story stands. History, the record of what was said, by whom, and when will decide which of them was right. The question this story raises is not comfortable, and it should not be made comfortable when a governing body cannot protect the officials it selects. And when its response to that failure is to ask the people who notice to chill, what does that reveal about the nature of the authority it holds? And when another institution, with no formal obligation, steps in within hours with speed, specificity, and a historic appointment, does that feel like genuine conviction? Or like a gesture timed for impact? Because both things can be true simultaneously. A gesture can be timed well and still be genuine. An appointment can be strategic and still be right. The historic first for an African referee in a UEFA final is real regardless of the motivations that produced it. What do you think? Does what UEFA did feel like genuine institutional conviction? And does FIFA's response feel like the response of an organization that understood what happened to the man it selected? Leave it in the comments. These are the conversations football needs to have. If this kind of storytelling is worth your time, a like helps more than you might think. Subscribe if you want to follow what happens in Salzburg in August, because that match, and the man who will walk out to officiate it, deserves an audience that understands what it is watching. Football at this scale is never just a tournament. It is a moment in time. And the moment that happened between Miami Airport and Salzburg, Austria, in the space of a single week, says more about the state of world football than any press release ever could.